So I'm just messing around with Tonalic for a minute. This stream, we'll see how it goes. It could be short, could be long, but I really wanted to address some of the comments I've been getting on my videos this week. I'm like a sharer of the news with some of my own biases in there, but um, not everyone is super impressed with these tools that bring musical aids into our workflow. I can't tell you how many times somebody has said, "No, thanks. I'm just gonna, play the guitar myself." And I respect, mad respect for anyone who can play guitar like all of these guitarists in Tonalic. For those of you who don't know, Tonalic is the new instrument from Celemony, they're the ones who made Melodyne, and now they're using that DNA pitch tool to make this Tonalic instrument be something that I've never seen before and something really cool. And nerding aside, I don't ever want to come across as suggesting that these tools should replace musicians. And in fact, I think it should just be the opposite. I think that these could enhance other musicians' workflow in the songwriting or pre-production. But there's something magical about working in the studio with a guitarist and a drummer, and having that real human interaction, which doesn't always happen when you're just sitting in a basement, which sometimes feels how Apple wants us to be. Instead of bringing us all together, it feels like sometimes some of these Apple products are designed to actually silo our lives and bring us apart from each other. I don't know. It's one of the things that we can talk about today and go through. But the big news this week, and this is kind of like a recap, a Friday afternoon stream recap of everything that's happened this week. There's been some things that I saw coming. There's some things that I didn't see coming. And there's some things that I'm looking forward to, and certainly some things that I'm nervous about. And so that's the range of emotion we're going to be looking at. However, one of the things maybe I want to address right off the bat are all the people who leave comments, and they're leaving these comments that say, "No thanks, all of those tools are stupid. I'm just going to keep on making music the old-fashioned way." Is kind of the vibe I'm getting from it. Well, I think that those people should understand that all of these things are tools. If you record a guitar and use an equalizer or a reverb, then how dare you? How dare you use those tools that make your sound different? Just play a guitar through a speaker and let whoever hears it hear it, but don't get on a high horse about using a workstation and say that some tools are not appropriate or some tools are beneath you, but then use all of the other ones, which are things that at one point or another fell into the same category. Hey, to those who are commenting already, thanks. Sound production advice says, "Evening, I finally made a live stream. Woo! That's what it takes, Friday afternoon." Fraser says, "You will never ever replace real quality musicians. Thank God these tools are great for bringing ideas to life." Though that's all my point has ever been. Thank you, Fraser, for saying it that way, because I feel like that's the truth. I don't want to replace musicians. I don't think any of us who care about the craft of music are thinking, man, if we could just replace all the musicians. I don't think that's the case. Although, if you go on YouTube, you'll see earlier, well, in 2025, there was actually a case in Asia, probably China. But they actually had a robot perform with a band, and it wasn't a robot that was programmed. It was actually like built off of an AI, and it was reacting to what the band was doing. And so they actually had a robot on stage performing with a band. I mean, that's the dystopian future we could be looking at, with actual performers and people going to shows that don't involve humans. We tried this like a decade or so ago with holographs. There was like some holograph performances of musicians that had passed away, and they brought them on stage in this form, and they performed, and it was there, and then it was gone. It's like, here's the thing: if some of the estates of the musicians who have died want to make extra money, and they think that they can do it through recreating the musician on a stage using AI, there's going to be somebody who does it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying money's involved. Somebody is going to do it, and they're going to do it over and over. And so it's like, we got to talk about this stuff. We got to have these conversations, because it doesn't make it right to do it. Doesn't make it wrong, I guess, if they own the rights to it. It gets kind of murky. Let's see some other comments. Burn says, I just got my Roland VS 890 out of storage. Gonna mess with it this weekend. Mess with music. That's right. You should. I still play through the whole track when I record on my DAW. ZYFX says, I'm a musician, so Tonalic isn't for me. There's a few reasons why Tonalic isn't for people. Tonalic is a quirky beast. To get the full version of it, it's $25 a month. That's a lot. They're saying they're going to continuously upgrade and update and add new musicians and new styles, instruments, whatever, right? Cool. They're going to add stuff. Does that make it worth $25 a month? The other really quirky thing about Tonalic is that you have to be online when you're using it. I can't just like take my laptop on the bus and do it there without having an internet connection. That's problematic for me. What if the internet's down? Does my whole workflow go down? Internet goes down regularly, right? Here in the States, at least. But to say it's not for me just because you're a real musician, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Meaning you can be a real musician and just not have a bass player with you that moment. Maybe you have a bass and maybe you can play bass. Not everybody can do it. Or drums. Maybe you're a guitar player, so then you can play bass, because everybody knows every bass player that's great started as a guitar player. That's a joke. I'm not being serious. Most of the time, that's my experience has definitely shown similar things, but that doesn't mean they're a drummer or have a good drum kit or have a room that a drum kit should be played in, because drums oftentimes don't sound good if you just do them in the basement with close walls, a lot of, really nasty early reflections and standing waves and things. You don't necessarily want to do drums for a nice project in a crappy room. So maybe you don't have access to that. Does that mean it makes you less of a musician to use something like Tonalic to put the drums on a track until you can get to that point? What if someone says, hey, pitch me your song, and you have this window of opportunity, but you don't have the time or the money to get the drums done correctly? Does it make it wrong to use Tonalic in a case where you're just pitching a song, and if they like it, then you'll be able to record the whole thing? That's a great question, I think. It doesn't make it, I don't think it's a problem to use it in that case. If you're planning on doing it differently in the long run, then that's up to you. Maybe this is good enough to do it that way anyway. Burns says, I still do old school punch ins and outs on mistakes. Most of my own production stuff is MIDI based, and so that's easier. You don't have to do punch ins and punch outs. But with vocals, I'm still doing take folders over and over and over, and sure, I'll go through and edit my voice together. I don't think that makes me less. It doesn't make me more of a musician to avoid that, even though that's a tool that we didn't have take folders and quick swiping, 20 years ago. When I was first a student and learning, we were on 2-inch tape and had like the little splicing kit and actually had to tape things together. I mean, that was the reality of that situation. I don't think it made us less of a musician to switch to Pro Tools or Logic or whatever. Certainly was different and certainly was not the same level of complexity. I think there was a period of time when using Pro Tools was harder than tape because it would crash and wouldn't work and didn't do much, and it had limited number of tracks, and then it got better, and then tape was harder. I don't know. I don't think it necessarily. In the university, we used to teach tape first as a fundamental, and then they would graduate into advanced topics in digital audio. And then at some point, we switched. Now everybody learns Pro Tools and their DAW first. And then as they get to be like almost graduating, they get to learn about tape. It's so funny how that is like flip-flopped over the years. And it's harder to keep our tape machines working. And of course, tape stock and issues. I mean, there's a lot of things with tape that don't make it better, that's for sure. ZYFX says, if I'm on the road, Tonalic would be cool when writing music without instruments available. Exactly. That was maybe my point. Burn says $25 a month. Wow. Talk about subscription exhaustion. I'm like, if I want to use this more than the one, I paid $1 for the month, right? That's their deal. They said, pay $1, you get a month of this. That's a technique to make us feel a little bit invested in it and not just have everybody download it and never use it. I mean, that's probably smart on Salmoni's part. But if I want to actually get the full version and use it for more than that, I'm going to have to decide which other subscription thing goes away, right? Do I get rid of Reason Rack? For the moment, have a ChatGPT subscription that I could get away with getting rid of. Which of my streaming services needs to go? They're just getting more expensive every day. Jerry Weber says, AI Bob Weir will never die and can write hundreds of songs a day. Okay. This is going to be a good crowd, I can tell already. Byrne says, I hum into my phone for song ideas. And humming into your phone is a great way to do song ideas. And then ZYFX says, I play all instruments myself. Do you play all instruments yourself at the level of a studio player, like a session player? Because that's what Tonalic is actually offering us. It's not offering us like a mediocre thing. These are all like some of the best in terms of what they're doing in each of the areas. And I actually really like this about Tonalic, that they didn't just give us a bunch of generic things. This also may be a marketing ploy, in my opinion. Here's the thing. We see a face, we see a name, we see their credits, and then we listen to what the file is, and we automatically are like prepped up to think it's going to be great. If we did some blind listening, double blind, I don't know what I'm playing, you don't know what I'm playing, we just listen, I bet you we would actually hear more of how this instrument is close to being great, but not perfect as a real musician. I bet you we would do that. But they're prepping us up. They've been so intelligent about this to say, no, this is Nate Mendel. Of course, he's a founding member of Foo Fighters. You're going to listen to this and be blown away. And we listened to it and we're like, okay, Nate Mendel. But I hear, when I'm actually being really objective about this, I hear that there's a little bit of warbleness in the bass at certain times. And I could think, well, that's just how the bass is. But no, this technique, this DNA technique of actually dissecting the sound as it puts it on different chords, it has ramifications. It has outcomes of that process. And so it's not the same as having Nate Mendel in the studio. It's not the same. It can't be. It doesn't mean it's not great, but there is a certain amount of psychology going into this design. And they're setting the bar at each point so that when you invest in it, you're like, this better be worth it. And then, okay, I'm going to make it worth it in my head. And it's not going to be. But there's so many things here. I mean, this whole system is incredibly deep. 654 different acoustic guitar strums in different styles. I mean, let's do the country ones. 245 different guitar strums for country music. but they all sound a little different. This is different than like an easy instrument or a session player in Logic where I can change the pattern, change the pattern, change the pattern, change the style, keep the same drum kit. And so there's continuity between all of them. These are actually like audio recordings that are being dissected with their technique and then changed. But one guitarist, if you change it from one beat bar to the next, is going to sound like a different guitarist for those two things. So there are limitations to this. But that doesn't mean, I mean, that's not against what they're promising. They're saying that, yeah, this is what it is. You're getting the original musician played through their guitar, their fingers, their equipment, and that's what you're getting on your song. And so that's actually like a strength, maybe more than even a weakness. Productions 1341 says AI music tools are just that, tools. They help us reach our vision faster. The artistry still comes from the musician. Hopefully. I mean, what we need, and I'm going to just keep on going on tangents probably, but what we need are some more regulation for, not necessarily government regulation. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking politics, but we need people like Spotify to give a crap about music and musicians, and to make it clear when there's releases that were made by humans instead of releases that were just made by an AI prompt. I really feel like we need that. I can't make them do it. They say they're working on it. They've done a bunch of stuff with it, but it's not foolproof. I mean, it's not going to really change unless they say that they care and want to make a change. Let's see. ZYFX says Logic Drummer works good enough for me. I've used Logic Drummer for a long time, and I'm not going to switch it out for the Tonalic drummers. The Tonalic drummers are great. Don't get me wrong. Let's go just pull a couple of them up here. Let's come over. High energy rock drums, go to open rides, closed hat essentials, 4 on the floor. Let's just do closed hat essentials, right? But each one of these is going to sound a little bit different. And so that is the struggle we're going to be faced with this. Even if we're using, they have the main pattern, the variation, and then we have the main C and then a drop. And we have, 4 patterns, a bunch of transitions, a few different endings. Great. Those will all sound like the same drummer, drum kit, room. And then down below we have drive, ambience, effects, and the ability to turn up or down the cymbals. And then we can swing it and adjust timing. When we come in and look at, we don't have that selected. When we have that actually loaded, then the expanded refine mode doesn't really do as much with drums as it does with guitar, where we can actually change the voicings of what's happening. Okay, great. This is all fine, but with the Logic Pro Session Drummer, what I need in there is like 10 times more patterns, personalities, genres, everything. That's what this is actually really doing well with right now, is that it's saying, you know what? Drum kit closed, hi-hat basic. There's 103 different patterns. And so you can use those. A lot of them are the same guy, but cool, you can explore, but this is only one part of it. We could come out and say, I want to do the metal one, and here's some metal with this, with those other criteria. Let's just switch out to metal and drum kit, and you'll see 45 different patterns. So there's like this new expansion of styles and genres that I don't have in the Logic one, and that maybe you don't have in your favorite auto drummer type thing. And they're all played by a real drummer in a real room, real drum kit. I mean, there's something about this that definitely calls to me a little bit. Let's see. Burns says, I used to be the slicer in a studio back in the day, cut tape. Cut and paste is way more easier. I agree so much. Hey, Dr. Voodoo, how's it going? Plastidon, um, you're going to have to miss it. Sorry. That's okay. It was an impromptu one. Um, ZYFX says, the groove when it comes to drummers is more important than patterns. Isn't that the truth? So there's something about the Logic Pro Session drummer, and I've seen this with other ones, Easy, Superior, anything that's using MIDI primarily. It's rare that I hear a pattern that I think that's going to fool everybody as a real drummer. It can, and you can do it, but it's pretty rare that that's my first thought. That's my first thought is that sounds just as good as a real drummer. I do like now the Logic drums get some heat. Let's just pull a drummer up for a minute. It gets some heat that I don't fully understand all the time. So here's all the stuff we have in the Logic drummer. The top ones are all the acoustic ones. Then we have electronic and then percussionist. It's a decent set. It's not a bad set. Has some potential here. The original ones were recorded pretty well. I hear people all the time say, well, they don't sound great. And maybe out of the box, they don't sound great, maybe the way you want them. But here's the thing you have to really understand is you're getting like a default preset of a stereo kit. Sure, we can come in and just change like the individual kit pieces. We can change the snare, the tom set, the cymbal set, the ride, hi-hat, all of that stuff. We can tune them a little different, dampen them, gain them. That's all fine. This is like really basic stuff. However, we're not limited to that. We have the multi-channel kits, including one that's called Unmixed Plus. And this Unmixed Plus one, if we pop open our mixer and you can see all of these individual mic feeds, have no EQ on them, no compression, no reverb, nothing. I mean, so some of the best drums I've ever heard in my life. There was a record I worked on a long time ago when I was in North Carolina. It was a drummer who came up from Knoxville, but he was one of the number one recorded drummers of all time in like country, Christian gospel music. And he set up his kit. He only brought like 4 or 5 snares with him, which is, for a country session, and they have cartage in Nashville, you might end up with like, 30 snares all moved into the session for big sessions. And they're going to pick the right one for the right job. And he had like his kick drum had a cable just coming out from a mounted D12. That's like the predecessor to the D112, just in the right spot. And he set all this stuff up. And I remember 2 or 3 things. One of the things was I had just set up the cue system from the control room. He hadn't been in the control room yet at all. There was a side door. He went to set up his kit. He started like helping move the mics where he knew they would sound good. But he put on the headphones and he's like, oh, and I just turned on the cue and he says, the buffer size of 256, can we go down one more? And I was like, whoa, how does he know what my buffer size is? He hasn't been in here. But he could hear that. And then he said something else that stuck with me. He goes, oh, you guys are using Nuendo. I like how Nuendo sounds. And it's just like some people are on a different level with their listening and hearing. But those things stuck with me, that there are things that you can hear and experience. And when that drummer played, he played all 6 of the cuts that we did that day. He made one mistake, and that was because the chart was wrong. We did everything once with the run through, once with the final take. He just played everything perfect. It wasn't pristine. It wasn't too clean. It was just like the groove was perfect on every song. And that level is something different than we have. But even his kit needed some EQ and a little bit of compression, and we put some reverb. Every kit needs a little bit of something after you record it. It's rare that a kit goes from straight from the drums. The room there was really nice, but it was like a medium-sized room, not a big drum room, medium small, and so we still had to do some stuff. That's the same thing with this. It's like I can use the preset drums in Logic and just go with whatever they put on there. But anyone who says they don't like the drum sound in Logic just needs to open this up and actually craft the sound that they want. Get the tuning right, get the EQ, get the compression, make it all work together. Raise up the room sound to how you want it. There's so many options in here that it's probably overwhelming for some people to be expected to get the sound that they want using some of these tools, but it is possible. Okay, let me go back to the comments for a minute. There's probably some good ones. Dr. Voodoo says, when version 12 comes out, you should make an entire video series on how to use these tools and make them your own instead of being lazy and just using them verbatim. Yeah, I mean, I struggle, especially with the YouTube stuff, because anytime I make a series about anything, there's a lot of time and investment, and it's always like we're weighing. This is the struggle. If I make a video about Suno, which is an AI tool that makes all of our music for us, it's like thousands of views every time I make a video about it. I hate making videos about Suno. It's not fun. So I struggle. I do like to make videos for the people who actually care about the stuff. But I'm always balancing because I have like this thing outside of YouTube called The Life. And my full-time gig, I'm teaching 3 classes this semester at the University of Colorado, Denver. I'm teaching a graduate class. It's a seminar class with like 11 or 12 students who are at the top of our program. They're about to graduate. They're all amazing. And that class is going to be incredible because we're going to sit in front of our SSL in our main studio control room and not talk about the basics. We're going to talk about advanced shit the entire semester. It's awesome. And then I'm teaching AP2, Audio Production 2, which is their very second semester of our program. And we're teaching them how to record through the same board. It's like I'm on different spectrums. It is so rewarding to work with students across that whole spectrum, but it's also exhausting. Because there's so much prep time that goes into it. It's like any of you who think, it's like I can learn whatever I need to on YouTube. Well, it's a different experience. And this is one of the reasons why I say university learning in a program like this is still worth it, because you go into a room and you get to know somebody. I get to know all the students and I see where they're at. And then we build their skills based on where they're at. We don't just feed them all the same thing. It's like we're working with them individually to help them learn. And so YouTube, when the semester starts, always goes off a little bit off my plate because it's just too much. And that's partly why I made so many videos this week. Classes start on Tuesday. And so I'm like, you know what? I better really get this in and say my piece before the semester starts because it will go down a little bit. It'll be too hard not to. I'll probably lose my voice for talking so much. And then my third class is actually my favorite. We're doing a new Logic Pro class on campus. It's Logic Pro for songwriters. And so all the people who are writing songs, we're teaching them how to make their pitch sessions in Logic so that they can pitch their songs. Now, they're not going to have all of the performance skills. They're not going to be drummers and they're not going to be like keyboard players. Some of them will. Some of them may be guitar players, but they're songwriters first and foremost, and we're teaching them how to make their demos in Logic, which I think is an amazing class. Let's see. Where did we... Oh, yeah. So Dr. Voodoo also says, I think that will help the skeptics understand these AI tools better instead of just criticizing them. You're very optimistic, Mr. Dr. Voodoo. You're very optimistic. I don't know. I think that there are some people who just want to rage. A long time ago, I learned something about this business that we're in, and that the negative comments, the negative comments are rarely about me. If someone leaves a negative comment on my YouTube channel, it's about them. It's not about me. It's about their interaction with some of these tools. They don't actually know me or care about me. They're just making negative comments because it's an expression of where they stand with it. It turns out, and this is the part that I learned maybe the best, is that their positive comments aren't about me either. The positive comments are also about their relationship with the content and not about me personally. And so it's important that we don't take our negative or positive comments personally. And instead, what we do is we put our head down and make a bunch of cool music that somehow will impact our own life and maybe set up itself so that it can impact the lives of other people as well. But it's not about us. The music is about itself, and the reactions are the people's reactions to the music. They don't actually care about the people usually making the music. Rarely. Sometimes there's some exceptions to that. But even most of the time, if you think you know like a famous artist, you probably really don't. We've learned over and over again the demons that chase famous artists that we didn't know about during their career. It happens. Dr. Voodoo. Sorry I made that assumption. See? We all make assumptions. And the reason, Dr. Voodoo, that I would make such an assumption is because I track my analytics on my channel. And for the past many, many years, the gender of viewership of this channel is 99.8% dude and 0.02% non-dude. And so I apologize for that. I just assume everybody who makes a comment on here. And thanks to those who are commenting. People do just want to be angry sometimes. And I don't hold that against them. I try not to. The only time I do rage every once in a while. I raged this week for a few minutes. I try not to rage on the road, but the road is the hardest place for me. It's where I rage when people do things that just mind boggle. Anyway, we were in a merge lane. This is a side story. An emerge lane, and everybody, it's like I try to stay back, but people are just like cutting in front of me. And so I just like went up to the car in front of me. We were barely moving, maybe 4 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. And the person in front of me thought I was too close. They rolled down their window and started screaming at me. And I just like stood there like, I don't even know what's happening. And so I didn't flip anybody off. I just like raised my hand and was like, come on, like, what are you doing? And so then they did this thing where they like go forward and then they slam on their brakes and think that I might hit them or something. So I just picked up my phone camera and started videoing. That keeps me honest. But I was like, I don't understand why everybody's so angry. I was angry about letting people in front of me. They were angry about me following too closely. All that anger is from this other things that aren't really related to driving. None of us were getting where we wanted to go fast. And so I just like had to disassociate and hope they didn't follow me and shoot me or something. Jeez. That's going to really probably affect. I shouldn't talk about that stuff on streams later. It could affect monetization of videos. And Dr. Voodoo, you were always a unicorn because I see you watching my videos and commenting and things. Cool. So, whoa. Here's the thing. So we talked about this tool from Celemony, the one whose name I cannot always remember, but we have that new tool. I didn't see it coming. I don't know if anybody, probably somebody saw it coming. But the Tonalic, I always say it with the wrong emphasis. Um, it's what I've been hoping for from Logic. Guitar player that can play to my songs when I'm writing them. And then end up on the final track if that's all I ever want to do. That's what I've been hoping for from our session musicians in Logic Pro. Instead, we're getting a new synthesizer player. And for the record, for one of the first times, Apple told us who the synth players are for the new synth session player. They told us in the press release. Did anybody catch who they are? Anybody catch who the synth players are for the new synthesizer session player in Logic Pro? Not all of you are probably Logic users, but for those of you who are, anybody catch who it was? They did it in-house with their own software engineers. Are you kidding me? You couldn't go out and get one famous synth player to be the player for the session players? Okay, let's look at Tonalic for a second. Let's look at Tonalic for a second. Rob Harris, Sean Hurley. I mean, I've heard of some of these people. You know who I've not heard of? A single one that I know of. A single one of the Logic Pro development team. There are a couple maybe higher up on the rungs. I don't know. They're not telling us who it is. And we're going to have to wait and hear it. But they're like, we're so proud we did this in-house. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Why are we proud of being this in-house instead of like actually getting some like really cool synthesis players who have like that groove? And maybe I'll be surprised. But that was one of the things that I was like, oh my gosh. I play synthesizer. I've got lots of synths. I do all kinds of cool stuff with my synthesizers. This is one of those things that I was like, oh, I needed that as much as I needed the piano one. I need a guitar one. So Tonalic does the guitar piece and it follows the chords. And it's really clever the way it follows the chords. And so that for me was like maybe it's time to look for an actual guitarist. I'm not talking about human ones for the moment. I'm talking about like Contact or Tonalic or whatever, because I need that element more in my music than I can do myself. I don't play guitar. At this point, someone on my comments is like, just learn and perfect it. You've still got time to do this. And I'm like, nope, I do not have the time to become a guitar player. I don't have the fingers. I don't have the strength in my fingers. I could develop all that stuff, but by the time I could play as good as Tonalic plays, we're talking like deathbed confession time. You know what I mean? That's how long that would take. And every year that goes by at this point is a year that all of those, the mental acuity and the physical acuity are just not going to be there. It's why I get so frustrated when Apple takes a year to give us an update. And it's not been a year, but it's been getting kind of close. We're looking at the end of January, and the last big update was really, May of last year of any sort. And so, yeah, we're like, every year that goes past, it's like, don't rely on these tools. Don't think the next update that comes to Logic is going to be the one that's going to miraculously make you good at this stuff. And so all of those people in the comments who were like, you know what? I have my instruments. I'm just going to keep on playing them. There's some great musicians who made some comments. Awesome jazz pianist in town made a comment about going out to lunch with friends and just playing gigs with them. And I thought, you know what? That's right. That's cool. That's the right approach to this. Don't wait until something else comes out. Part of my job, at least the job I consider I have as a YouTuber about Logic Pro, is talking about what's coming, what just arrived, and what we have. And so I fall into the trap of like, if I only had this, then I could talk about it on my YouTube channel. That's not how I approach like my life in all things, but certainly That's how I approach Logic. And so that's my cycle and my burden to bear, but it shouldn't be how everybody approaches Logic. You shouldn't think of what's next. And it drives me bonkers when someone says, okay, well, that's it. I'm out. I'm switching away from Logic. I'm like, why would you switch away from Logic if you've spent time learning how to use it? It can do everything. You can make great music in here with microphones and just the mixer and some basic effects. You can make great music with the session musicians if you want to. You can make great music with live loops. It took me some effort to really say that out loud. It's possible. It doesn't matter. If you switch to another workstation and then have to spend all the time you've already spent learning Logic, but learning another one, it's like you're going to find out that it has all kinds of quirks and shortcomings too. It's like it doesn't matter. It's like you're going to find the same shortcomings in your own personality music-wise in any workstation. And so just start making the music now. Dr. Voodoo says, agreed. I don't think anyone should wait for features to come. If Logic doesn't do what you want it to do, switch to the DAW that does. And do it soon, right? Do it now. Because if it doesn't do what you need it to do, that's easy. But it turns out that 95% of what you need in a music production piece of software that Logic can do, it just can. It's capable. Some of those things depend on you being a good musician. And if you need to spend the time to get better at that, then great. There are certain things that I do in my music. I sing in my music, even though I consider my voice not to be, a great voice. But I process it a certain way and I do certain things and I listen to my music and I find great enjoyment in it. Right? So mission accomplished. And, but when I hear somebody who can sing, it's amazing. I do a study abroad program in the Czech Republic every year. And this last summer, we were at the Imperial Hall, which is part of Prague Castle, the heart of Prague, where the government is. And the Imperial Hall is this really reverberant space. It overlooks the city. And we brought a string quartet in, and I didn't know at the time. They came highly recommended, and I just didn't know that they did something that they showed us. They played classical music, and then they played another song, and one of the violinists put her violin down and sang, and sang along with the other three players. And it filled that hall. And at the end, there wasn't a dry eye. All of my students were like bawling. And it's amazing how a good musician can do that, can like bring out the emotion. It was in a foreign language. None of them spoke Czech. The students didn't. And didn't matter. The emotion was so intense. And every single one of them felt it and were different afterwards. Logic can capture that just as good as anybody. And so I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised to see which features are that people felt like they couldn't get in Logic and they needed to get someplace else. If nothing else, maybe it just costs some money for a third-party solution, right? ARA may be the one thing that can bring out just as much emotion as that string quartet in Prague. The fact that we don't have ARA that's fully functional is enough to bring people to tears. So ARA is the one thing I can think of. If you need ARA for some reason, if you're doing like endless vocal line sessions or you need Melodyne, then yeah, go to a different workstation because you don't need to add like 15 years of your life in editing alone just because you want to stick to Logic without ARA. That'd be the only real thing I can think of. Everything else we can probably find solutions for. And then Again, Logic can do most things that other DAWs do. Logic just does it its own way, but some people want Logic to operate the same way that Ableton or FL does it. Those are the people who should switch DAWs and should use Ableton or FL, honestly. Although, I mean, let's be super clear. One of the best things about FL is that it works inside of Logic. I think I need to update it. This might crash my whole system just because I haven't updated it recently. But you can run all of FL inside Logic Pro. So you can have the best of both worlds by loading up FL Studio as a plugin inside Logic Pro. How cool is that? It's quirky, opening and closing it, but it works. It just syncs right up and does all the stuff. If I had to use a different program other than Logic, if Logic were to quit tomorrow, close down, it's not, by the way, but if it were, Studio One, now Fender Studio Pro, would be one of my choices. Just because I feel like they've got some energy going in the right direction, right? Am I right? They've got some stuff happening over there. FL Studio would be one that I would consider just because I really have enjoyed that in the past. There was a time I was doing these courses, video courses for a company called VTC.com, virtual training company. It was back in 2007. I did the first one, and it was about FL Studio. And I mean, I've done several for them on that topic. That software is also just as weird as Logic is in the way it wants to do things. It does things its own way. And so it's quirky and has a good user base and has free updates for life. And it's like a good company, I think. I don't actually know them, but I get vibes from them that seem really positive. Another question, do I think Logic 12 will get dynamic EQ? Not a chance. Ugh, not a chance. The good news is dynamic EQ is something that's easily available from third-party solutions, and so you can get it and use it inside Logic. I don't think Logic will have one directly. I haven't heard of any dynamic EQ companies getting purchased lately, I guess is what I mean. That's the only way that Apple's probably going to get one of those, is my suspicion. I wonder if there's any open patents on dynamic EQ processes, and so only certain companies can do them a certain way and if Apple were to make one of their own, it would infringe, and so they'd have to pay licensing. I don't know. There's something funky about it because it seems like low-hanging fruit to add a dynamic EQ into Logic. I'd be happy. So here's my other thoughts about this. I would be super happy if, for instance, the multipressor were to be updated, right? This is not a dynamic EQ. This is a multiband compressor. But the two, turns out, are similar in some ways. I'm generalizing, simplifying. But we have this. I would love for them to update this and just make it a multipressor / dynamic EQ tool that does all of that in a really nice way. We're stuck with one of the oldest plugins in Logic with this multipressor, and it's old school. It sounds okay. But this would be the opportunity. And yet here we are years and years and years and years later, and they haven't done anything with it, which makes me think, A, they don't know how, B, they're lazy, C, they're oblivious to why we would even want this, or D, they're just incapable. I said that one first. I'm just saying it twice because maybe somebody on their team is listening. I don't know. Drop the gauntlet. Accept the mission. We have a number of those plugins inside Logic. Another one that I really wish we had updated was the stereo spread. Because if I have to give it my Reason rack subscription in order to use the Tonalic subscription, and that's my choice right this moment, because even though I could pay for both, it's like I can't in my heart pay for both. I've been using Reason less and less, but I still use Reason for their stereo spread because it is the best stereo spread in the universe. And so I would hate to have to go back to this one. This one is horrible. Why aren't we using the neural network to make us a stereo spread that's freaking amazing? A, maybe they don't know how. B, maybe they're overworked and underpaid and they're busy making new synthesizer session players, which everybody on the team was like, I want to contribute some synth parts. It seems like anytime in the community around Denver that we need somebody to teach classes for us, they're always like an expert on MIDI and synthesis and not enough on like making like microphone based records. Ugh, generational gap. Amber says, hey, Chad, just wanted to say I love Logic Pro so much. Very grateful for the tools to record my originals. Awesome. That's like a very bot thing to say. Hope you're human. No AI bots allowed in this chat. I'm just kidding, by the way, Amber Crowley. And then Prash says, multipressor UI is an eyesore. Right? Eyesore. Why? I mean, oh my gosh. Talk about eyesores. We got some eyesores. What's everybody's favorite eyesore in this thing? Anybody have a favorite eyesore? I'll tell you one of my favorite eyesores here in just a moment. I was just looking through, see if I think Ultra Beat might win for me. Oh, gives me chills. It's like, I remember when this thing was the beast. It's the GOAT for drum stuff in Logic. They don't update these things intentionally, partially because they're stuck thinking backwards compatibility is a really important thing. I don't know. I disagree. I think if somebody has a song that's 20 years old and they want to open it up and it doesn't work because Ultra Beat is different. I mean, you waited 20 years to open it. That's on you. That's not on the developers. Let stuff go after a certain point. Ultra Beat, Dr. Voodoo also says sculpture, which I was tempted to put that one in there too. Oh my gosh, there are so many better ways to make this functionally for us. Look at this thing. Okay, let's look at the bottom third. Gray on gray on gray on bluish gray. That's impossible to read effectively in any sort of timely way. And then they do things like this. Target PKP, capital P, small k, big A, plus big B, POS. POS works here. It's like, I know what it means because I know sculpture as well as anybody on the planet. But it's like, oh, why is this designed like this? Why is this contrast so horrible? Why is this hard to see or use or comprehend? The sound of this, on the other hand, more like the creative connections, meaning we have the three objects with the string, we have the material section and the body it connects to. That thought process of saying, let's make this instrument that's like a modeled system is brilliant. No one has ever done anything like this before or since sculpture. Maybe because, dang, that was complex to do, or maybe because no one wants it. I don't know. But this thing can make sounds that nothing else can make. and it is brilliant, but the interface is one of the worst. One of the worst. I'm not joking. Ugh. We rant about old Logic plugins. Of course, we still have the ES1. And that'll never change because, I mean, this is the perfect example of backwards compatibility. Let's make it bigger. All right, this thing was here and around when I was in college. And this thing was going to change the world. And it did. It pushed people to realize soft synths could actually make synthesizer type sounds. And you could run on every track one of these. You didn't just have to have one. Oh my gosh. Those days. I'm not feeling nostalgic for them. I'm not a nostalgic person in terms of technology. I much prefer to have all the tools we have now instead of what we had before we had the tools we have now. I don't look backwards like that. I don't look backwards towards tape and think, oh my gosh, my life would be better if everything sounded like that. I don't use Chroma Glow because it makes me think of a bygone era with tape. I use it because it actually does a really good job and sounds great for other reasons, and I can use it to do certain things that maybe I could do on tape before. But I don't look back and think, man, what would it be like? Maybe I should buy a 16-track tape machine for my home studio and run things on there and record them all. Ugh. Dr. Voodoo, you're totally right. At least on the ES1, it was a design success in many ways. We could read what was on there and see it, but the sculpture it's impossible. I see you have FL Studio as one of the menu items. How is that possible, and what is the purpose? Oh, so you must have not seen a minute ago when I actually loaded it all up. You're talking about right here. FL Studio runs as a audio unit plugin. So I can run all of FL Studio inside Logic Pro. And I have done that various times. I don't do it that often. But there's some things inside FL that I love. One of them is Pitcher, which allows you to hook up your MIDI controller and it sends MIDI data to the pitcher. Your voice goes in there, and whatever notes you're playing will play it in harmony, I guess. It's not the first harmonizer ever to be out there, but I've always really liked that harmonizer. And so I keep it around. But you can run a full session in here. If I want some sounds in there, I can do it. It's a nice way to incorporate. It's one of the reasons why I like Reason Rack. And so if I keep Reason Rack around as well, partially because I know some of the sounds in there that I really like. Some of the new things they have are really cool, but it expands Logic's sound set pretty nicely. And it would be sad to kind of take that off if I'm going to use the Tonalic, but maybe it will, maybe it won't. Okay, we've been ranting now for... hope Lander doesn't screw up Reason. I feel really positive about it until the moment they realize that they're probably not going to be making much money off of it. So hopefully they don't scrap stuff. But I would love, hear me out, I would love for them to say, you know what? This has all been great, but let's pull some of these instruments out of Reason and sell them as standalone ones. So I didn't have to load up the rack every time. I could just load up direct Reason instruments and effects and MIDI effects instead of the rack. That would be, maybe Lander will do that. This has been fun. We just hit 1 hour exactly. And I think it's a time to pull the plug. I'm going to move on with my day, having a weekend without making a video. And next week, I'm making like 3 or 4 videos. I'm going to be talking about Automy and maybe Resing by IK Multimedia. Some exciting stuff happening in both of those places. And one or two more videos to help you get ready for the new Logic update. I made one this week that has done really well, and we'll do another one or two. One about the chord track to make sure everybody is understanding the potential of the chord track and how some of those things work. That'll likely stay the same. And then release day on the 28th is the following week. And we'll be doing some heavy duty live streaming once that is available for download. And then we'll have a week of videos, and then I'm gonna exhaustion will set in, and then you won't hear from me for like a week or two. But thanks for watching today. Huge shout out to everybody who was commenting and contributing, and those of you who are just creeping off on the side. That's also totally cool. And thanks for being here. Have a good weekend.